I'm Larry Anglisano reporting for Avionics News, publication of the Aircraft Electronics Association. It's a good resource for avionics and maintenance shops. You know, no matter how many of the latest avionics you load in customer airplanes, they'll still be attached to tablet apps. And for customers new to tablet apps, now more than ever, they'll want to lean on the installing shop to help make a right buying decision. The problem there is that many shops have enough on their plate with trying to get the installation right. They don't really know a lot about apps. So to help with the buying decision, I recently sat down with John Zimmerman at Sporty's. He had some good basic advice for sending the customer in the right direction.
Why are we so hooked on these things?
I think there's three parts to this, so let's break it down. I think number one, it's easy to overlook how useful these iPad apps and EFB apps are for pre-flight planning. So it's not just about in the airplane. Certainly it started there, right? It was a chart reader. Oh, I can take my paper charts and make them digital. But it quickly became much more than that. So now I would venture to say most pilots use ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot before the flight more than they use it in the flight. You're looking at weather, you're planning routes, you're looking at airports, you're checking fuel prices, you're doing weight and balance. There's all these things you can do in the app beforehand. That's a key part. Even if you have the most fantastic panel, these things are still tremendously useful for pre-flight planning. And it may not be great avionics. It may be kind of a mishmash of maybe you've got one G5 and an old 430 or something. And so in that case, your electronic flight bag is kind of your portable cockpit. And I see this with my flying. Same thing, Larry. I fly some airplanes with G600 TXI and Garmin 750s and all that. Amazing avionics. There's still, for a lot of things, the EFB app is easier. Not that it's tough to do on the panel, it's just quicker. It's right there, it's on your knee board or your yoke mount or in your hand. And, you know, pinch zooming, oh, what's that airspace look like? Or let me pan around the weather and see if there's a rubber band flight plan route I can get around that thunderstorm. You can do a lot of that on the panel, but I just think it's easier to do in most of these apps. So it's a combination of all those things, but I don't think it's, you know, some grand conspiracy or anything. I think the customer has voted with their wallet here, and they're just easier to use, and they've come so far. I think we sometimes take for granted that these did start as chart viewers, and now they're pre-flight planning, and their weather tools, and their logbooks, and their weight and balance, and performance calculators, and all these other things you can do them. That they're much more than just an in-flight navigation display.
Are some folks that are using Android devices. Now, is it your sense that the iPad has become dominant for the hardware of choice?
Definitely. I mean, we again, we're agnostic at Sporty's. We're happy to support anybody, any app, any equipment, but we also look at the numbers and, you know, who's shopping in our site and what are they buying? And iPad has become dominant. Some of that's just, is it the best hardware? I don't know. We could debate that. Maybe not. But it's a good package, and it's well supported by lots of apps and accessories. And so a lot of times what you're buying is the ecosystem, not the raw performance specs. And especially something like the iPad mini for a lot of smaller GA cockpits, it's just kind of the right size, performance, price package all around is a good fit for a lot of pilots.
Yeah, it works. All right, let's talk about the buying decision. Don't fly IFR, and maybe you still use paper. We hear from people still using paper, and they haven't done anything with an iPad or an Android in a cockpit. Where do you start?
Well, you started in the right place, which is start with you and the type of flying you do. I sometimes see pilots chase the feature list or, you know, my friend said this or that. That's the wrong place to start. Start with a little bit of self-analysis. What kind of pilot am I? What do I fly? Is it VFR, IFR? Do I fly, you know, what kind of airplanes do I fly? What kind of avionics do I have in the airplanes I fly? That really is the place to start, an inventory of what you do and so what your needs are. Because if you're chasing some advanced jet performance profiles and you fly a 172, that's just wasted effort. So definitely start there. I would start with that pre-flight part. So, you know, there's some concern. Some people, oh, we have our heads down too much in the cockpit, and that can be a thing. One way to address that is to ease into it. And I think a lot of the value in these apps can start with the pre-flight, help you make better go, no-go decisions, track your currency, things like that. So if you want to tiptoe in, I think you can explore these apps from a pre-flight perspective. Maybe it's even on your phone to start. Maybe you don't even have it. If you're a chart person, paper chart, maybe all you have is an iPhone or an Android. So let's check out the iPhone or Android phone version of the app, and let's play around with that for pre-flight briefings and weather and things like that. Most of these apps have a free trial. so you can try them and just sort of compare from the comfort of your couch. 1G, 0 knots, 72 degrees. It's a little bit better place to start that introduction than it is in the cockpit where we're going to jump right into navigation tasks. So I would suggest that start with whatever hardware you have now, whether it's just an iPhone or maybe you've got an iPad. Start with that pre-flight, sitting at home on the couch, and you'll get a feel for the particular feel of each app. And I think that's important because let's be real. All of the top 5 apps are great apps. If you would take ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot or Flight Plan Go or FlyQ or any of these, and you go back to 2005 and show it to a GA pilot, they would be overwhelmed. They would offer you $3,000 for that package, right? I'm sure of it because we used to sell Garmin GPSs for $2,800 that did less. So they're all great, and sometimes pilots can overstress this decision. We're picking between a Lamborghini and a Ferrari here, so I'm not sure there's a wrong choice. But tiptoe into it, get started with a free trial on these, and get started at home. I would not do your first evaluation in the cockpit.
And let's talk about avionics upgrades, because somebody may be flying a legacy panel with old round gauges, maybe an old GPS or maybe no GPS at all. And then the airplane goes into shop for a big avionics installation, and now you start thinking about choosing an app that's compatible with the avionics. How important is choosing an app based on the avionics in the airplane, from what you can tell?
I think it's a factor for sure, especially if you obviously have those avionics. I don't know that it's the deciding factor. One good thing is, Garmin Pilot and ForeFlight are the big two. From what we see, ForeFlight's number 1 by a pretty good margin. Garmin Pilot has come along nicely in the last few years and is in a solid number 2. The other apps, I think, are further behind that in terms of what we see with usage. And the good news is both of those apps, ForeFlight and Garmin Pilot, both integrate pretty well with most panel avionics. Definitely some differences, definitely some details. But for example, if you've got a flight stream in your Garmin Navigator, you can sync flight plans from your GTN Navigator to both ForeFlight and Garmin Pilot. You can stream ADS-B weather and traffic from the panel to both ForeFlight and Garmin. And those are kind of the core features. There are some higher end things. If you've got a Garmin engine instrument system, that Garmin EIS data can be streamed to your iPad, but only Garmin Pilot, not ForeFlight. If you have SiriusXM weather in the cockpit, you can stream that from the panel to Garmin Pilot, but not ForeFlight. ForeFlight only does ADS-B. So there are some differences to understand, but I do think if we're talking about the big 2 apps, that is what most pilots are using these days, and we're talking about the most popular Garmin panel avionics, you can do those core things of flight plan transfer and weather and traffic from the panel on both. So that doesn't usually need to be a deciding factor. If you've got a really high-end panel, if you've got that engine instrumentation system from Garmin, if you've got a GDL60 and you want to do all the latest and greatest database updates and flight logging and all that, okay, that's where Garmin Pilot does have an advantage. If you've got a full-up latest and greatest Garmin stack, definitely Garmin Pilot has some things to think about. But if it's more of a typical kind of federated panel with a little bit of a mishmash, which is fine, ForeFlight can do most of the things you care about. It certainly doesn't hurt to keep your options open, look at the other things out there. Again, the advantage is if you are exploring other apps, you can do a free demo. So if you're using ForeFlight now and you like it, I wouldn't be in a hurry to change, but if you want to go do a demo of Garmin Pilot, download it, try it. I think the other thing that can be helpful is to go fly or visit with another pilot who uses that app. So if you use whatever, ForeFlight, and you want to look at Flight Plan Go, go find somebody who uses that app and watch them use it. Instead of starting cold, look at an experienced user and see what features they use. What do they like? What do they not like? Where are the gaps? What do you use right now in your current app? And make sure those features are available in the new app. So certainly competition's good for the market. I think we have some pretty good competition in the market. I'd be surprised if ForeFlight really slipped a lot given the competition out there. But it is an easy thing to shop around and look at other apps again with those free trials out there. So no reason not to at least pay attention.